We're very happy to have Dr. John Wallace here. Uh, I'm trying to play the role of timekeeper also and keep us on schedule. I haven't done very well. I flunked that test a couple hours ago. But let's try to, because I want to get you guys lunch on time. We have an outstanding speaker. John I have a long one-page introduction that was prepared in terms of his bio, but let me suffice to say that he has degrees from the University of Michigan and the University of Chicago. He holds an endowed chair of social work here, but he's outside the traditional mold of a professor. He also is a pastor in a church in Homewood. And I just think that, and he's been a driving force behind moving all our projects to Homewood. And it's just, I've just learned so much just talking to him every time. So let's welcome him here and see who.
Thank you so much.
Very short.
How much time? What do we want to do? 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me set my clock here. People have heard me say my grandfather taught me, "Blessed are the short-winded, for they should be heard again." So I can we can do 10 minutes. All right. So we'll set it for 10, and then we'll do it. So I may need to rush through some things to facilitate our time, but we'll see what we can do. So first of all, many of us in here, I'm not an engineer, not even going to pretend to be an engineer, so I'll talk a little bit about stuff I know something about. Many of us are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, right? So down here is, so we talk about the bottom of the pyramid, and it's interesting we began even with this pyramid. I think John's first slide, talking about the BOH, and then the middle of the pyramid, and the apex of the pyramid, and then John Camillus is way up here at the top, and all of that. But the rest of us, or many people down here, but this issue, particularly when we talk about low-income communities, these are the issues that we're talking about. And so that's kind of the perspective from which I come thinking about this issue of DC and why DC power. Pittsburgh, tale of two cities, right? The Economist names Pittsburgh the most livable city on the mainland again, right? Second only to Honolulu. Interesting. Condon asked, top 15 places to go: Helsinki, Cape Town, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Furnaces are long gone, but the city is on fire. Pittsburgh named one of the most livable cities in the world. This is amazing. I'm like, Pittsburgh is okay, but other kudos: most affordable, bikeable, hikeable, stunning views, recreational, romantic, tech savvy, smartest, well-read. All of this stuff. And as a Pittsburgher, I'm taking pride in this stuff. I'm sending it to all my friends back in Ann Arbor and Chicago. I'm like, well, you guys come see me sometime. Much better place than yours. However, recently here at the Center on Race and Social Problems at the School of Social Work, where my dean is Larry Davis, we published this report. This is the second one we've done. This one was published in 2015. And Pittsburgh isn't as wonderful, perhaps, as for all of its citizens. So if you look at this slide, and the city, the county, I won't go into all that, obviously. But let's look at the city. So how wonderful, how great is Pittsburgh? 87% of Pittsburgh's white residents say it's a wonderful place. Only about a little bit more than half of African Americans feel the same way. That's a 30% gap. That's fairly substantial. People appear to be seeing or living in different places. Median household income, Pittsburgh for African Americans, $22,000, $21,800. Compared to $44,600 for Africa for whites, and similar across the region. Unemployment, African American unemployment about 17% compared to less than 7% for whites. Home ownership, we know that home ownership is sort of the core of wealth building. When people want to start a business, they typically get a line of credit or their home. The banks want something to take if your business goes belly up, right? Look at home ownership here in the city of Pittsburgh for African Americans, only about a third compared to more than half for whites. Child poverty is probably one of our best metrics of how well a community is doing. These are the largest metro areas in our country: DC, Dallas, so forth. This is Detroit. People are disparaging Detroit these days. But when we look for African Americans in America, Pittsburgh, in fact, is one of the most challenged places in which to live. And the thing that makes it particularly interesting and challenging is the fact that only about 15% of Pittsburgh's white children live below poverty. And so we literally have these two distinct worlds in the city that many people simply do not grasp, do not understand, and cannot fathom. And then looking at some of your faces, you're like, oh my goodness, right? Jaws on the floor. This is the reality of our city. This is Homewood Brushian. I was born in Homewood, 1965, class of 67 Head Start. Love that community. And Homewood is a place that's rich with assets. For those of you who only watch the news, all you know is violence. The truth of the matter is, for those of us who live, learn, work, and worship in Homewood, it's much more than that. So Homewood is one of the few communities in this city that has a YMCA, YWCA, Carnegie Library, a branch of the CCAC, and on and on and on. Our schools are actually among physical buildings among the finest in the city. The YMCA is brand new, just got a new infusion of $1.5 million. It's going to be a youth technology-focused center. And these are all activities in which we as a university can be proud to say that we're participating in. That said, Homewood also has its challenges. Homewood's 1 square mile, about 6,000 residents, 2,000 kids, hyper-segregated, about 96% African American. These are some data to highlight the sort of issue. So we talked about this issue of where people live, how they live. 62% of folks are renters. 50% of them don't have a car. Have you ever ridden a bus and you've had that bag with the tomato sauce and the bag rips and the tomato sauce rolling down the aisle and you got that milk and all of that stuff and you're trying to just navigate riding the bus, no car? That's a big deal, and it costs $15 to get a jitney. This is pre-Uber. $15 to get a jitney to get to the store and then to get back home, right? 45% of folks in the workforce and so forth. This food access and insecurity. So the RAND Corporation was doing a study using Homewood as the control group for the grocery store project. So 30% of the respondents in Homewood said we couldn't afford to eat balanced meals. 40% said the food we bought just didn't last. We didn't have money to get more. And almost half said we worried about whether our food would run out before we got more money to buy more. This is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So using DC to empower Homewood. So energy, okay, the energy thing is important. So when we think about housing, low-income housing or affordable housing, they're talking about putting about 300 affordable homes in Homewood in the next couple of years. The question is, though, even if people can afford to get in the house, there's this little thing they call utilities. Anybody ever have utilities? Right? And so when the utilities on a home, gas bill, coal, $300-400 a month, that's enough to totally disrupt a four-family's lifestyle. But what we know about DC, there's actually a passive house I saw in British Columbia. The utilities reduced by 90%. 90%. When they put in those walls, this was the craziest thing. When they put in the walls of the greenhouse, and you saw some of it, and I'll show you some more pictures. The guy got there with the crane at 9 a.m. By noon, the foundation was in. So even when you're talking about building a home, in 3 hours, the foundation for this building was in, bolted together, done. Walls have the insulation built into it, so you have the concrete and the insulation built in one piece. And when you go in that place, if the sun is shining, Sunday I was in the building, it was 80 degrees easily, and outside it was probably 40. It was cold. And so the amazing way in which energy, just a piece of this thing, how it can transform communities and empower. So if we're doing housing that takes into account that you can build this thing in a fraction of the time, that the utilities can be reduced up to 90%, we've then changed the game on affordable housing in low-income communities. Education. So one of the primary foci of our work, I co-founded the Homewood Children's Village. We're in Lincoln, Faison, and Westinghouse, the feeder pattern for schools in Homewood. The schools are challenged academically. We cannot incrementally try to improve those children's education. We must accelerate them. When we start talking about closing gaps and all these sorts of things, technology is amazing, but technology literally accelerates gaps or has the potential to do so if we don't engage those who are most in need in exposure to these technologies. So using the DC space, the classroom, we have a larger area that the greenhouse, sorry, it's a bio shelter. It's not just a greenhouse, right? Bio shelter. The bio shelter is sitting on is also part of a larger outdoor classroom in which we will be working with our children, teaching them how to use this technology, doing the research on what kind of crops can you grow, what difference does it make that you're growing stuff indoors versus outdoor, the potential to do this growing 24/7, very interesting stuff that our kids in home would be exposed to beginning, in fact, as early as this summer. We have a summer program already mapped out. We're working with Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. We're saving, 1,700 gallons of water out of the sewage system, right? And so teaching our children all of these energy technologies at 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 15 years old, game changer academically. Employment. So trying to provide some employment. We're working on a farm. We want to do aquaponics. I think Stephanie, Dr. Body will talk more about that. She's been working with us around implementing an aquaponics system in that space. So employing people in entrepreneurship. If nothing else, I'm seeing all of these trucks of people from the crane driver to the backhoe driver to the guys who are doing the electrical, the wiring, all of the DC technology. There are all of these businesses attached to this technology that people can be trained to do. The moving of the Manufacturing Assistance Center to 7800 Susquehanna, the ability to manufacture, design, manufacture, produce, distribute solar panels and what other technology that will come out of these projects in partnership with the university, with the support of the Hillman Foundation, Richard King Mellon Foundation, Heinz Endowments, and others who are supporting this work. The potential is tremendous. Right now in that building, guys are working with Steve Shelton from the Trade Institute of Pittsburgh. He's the guy that does the high-end masonry, or when he had his company, the high-end masonry on those houses on Fifth Avenue. Those big houses that you like, whoever lived in those houses that are now divided up and there's like 800 people in there and there's still room, right? The guy who does that work on there, he's training guys who's coming out of prison to do that high-end masonry work. Well, think about it. The same kind of activity can be happening around DC Power. Young men who made mistakes in their life, young men and young women who have children. When we saw the placement rate is 95%, starting labor $15, $18, $20 an hour. Those are livable wages that transform people's lives. And so while I'm not all that aware of or informed about DC as a power strategy, I do understand the transformational impact they can have on poor communities. So let me see how my time is doing. Ooh, it stopped. All right, I'm done. Give me 2 minutes. All right, so this was the vision for the work we're trying to do. This is the outdoor classroom. This is a canopy with a solar array on it. And we were thinking about two greenhouses, but we have one that's so amazing we only have to do one. And this is a building we have next to it. The aquaponics, you take the waste from the fish feeds the plants grow, they clean the water, and so we're going to have an aquaponics system that will be DC run, probably the only one, maybe certainly in this area, and who knows, maybe the country, fully DC. This is the spot where the thing was supposed to be before we started. This is it being built, the hole in the ground. This is the cistern, the 1,700 gallons. These are guys who got out of the truck and started working on the building I told you about. This is the interim stages. This is going up. This is it. I might have it today. And this is from reality. We went from vision to a hole in the ground. And this is the Oasis Micro Farm and Fishery that will be jumping off very soon. And I'm going to let Elliot tell you what the thing does. Yeah, Elliot's not here, but I'm going to let him speak, I think. Oh, I got to learn how to use it. See, in the business school, this is a little fancier than the one we have in social work.
I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the rainwater systems, the DC Heart solar greenhouse. So starting with the rain, getting the metal roof, it'll flow down on this direction, also to the south side. It'll run through two rainwater downspout filters into this underground cistern here. From there, we'll use a DC-powered submersible pump to run the water through this filtration skid, which is mounted on the wall here. From there, we'll store the fresh filtered water in this above-ground cistern. They'll be able to pull fresh water for fish swimming directly out of this tank. We're also going to build a lab area over here. So water if they lose power to the building, or have a pressurized system, pump hoses and aquaponics and things like that. I think it's kind of a first of a kind system, so hopefully it all works, and we'll see where it goes. Thanks.
So that's done. So now we've moved on to the commercial farm across the street, and you may be able to even get some caviar from Homewood. Have a great rest of your day.